Today we're going to talk about building an aftercare kit, whether you are playing with a partner, doing pickup play, or just self-aftercare. Hey guys, it's Morgan with BDSM Relationships and Education. Thank you very much for checking out this video. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe by clicking the button below. Also click on that little bell icon, and that way you'll get notifications every time I upload a new video. So today we are going to talk about aftercare. I've done other videos on aftercare, and I'll link those in the cards above and in the description box below. And we know that aftercare is a very individual thing. Some people want lots of aftercare, some people don't want any aftercare, and a lot of people will fall somewhere in the middle. So when we are talking about aftercare, it's really important to include this in your negotiations, and I talked about that in the other video I did. The reason is because if you end up running into someone like myself, I of course will provide like any first aid style aftercare that you require. Make sure that you are, healthy and able to, go home or whatever it is. I'll bandage up any wounds that we've caused, that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to cuddle with you. It's just not who I am or what I'm into. And I always make this clear to people before I play that I don't provide that type of aftercare. So if you end up deciding you want to play with somebody like myself and you do need aftercare, you may find yourself in a position where you need to do self-aftercare. Now, also, if you're doing pickup play at parties, then you may find yourself needing to do self-aftercare as well, because casual play partners are less likely to provide extensive aftercare after a scene. Everybody should sort of do that bare minimum of making sure you're okay, and getting you a band-aid if you need it or whatever. But for a lot of people, the idea of that sort of nice, reconnecting, cuddly kind of aftercare is going to be reserved for relationships only, if then. So a lot of people have asked what I have in an aftercare kit, and of course, because I'm not an aftercare person, I don't have one. I have my basic first aid kit that I bring with me to play parties, that serves as a DM kit as well, because I do dungeon monitor a lot at parties. And I'm just the type of person, I have a background in healthcare, so I tend to bring first aid supplies with me pretty much no matter where I go. And I can talk about those in another video if you want an idea of what to have in like a first aid kit for kink. But I'm going to talk very briefly about that in this video, but here's some ideas for building your own aftercare kit. Now, the first thing, and to me, one of the most important things, is a first aid kit. Really, you don't need a ton of stuff in there unless you're doing some really specific types of play. Generally, some band-aids, a bit of gauze, some medical tape to attach the gauze if you need, some rubbing alcohol wipes, or some BZK wipes. Those are my preference because they actually have an antimicrobial aspect to them rather than just skin cleansing. You could have some Neosporin or burn ointment if you are playing in ways that might require those types of things. But you really just need a very basic first aid kit. Nothing fancy. Don't go overboard. You don't even need to buy one. Just get like a pencil case or a makeup bag and throw a couple of things in there and you're all good to go. Oh, another thing I like to have in those the first aid kit are those instant ice packs. You can usually find them at like the dollar store or a drugstore. They're the type where you just, they'll have a core inside and you just snap it in half and it becomes instantly cold. And that way you don't need to worry about having, putting something in the freezer for an hour before you can put it on, something that needs it. It's really handy if you've gone a little overboard and you have some swelling, or if you trip and fall and sprain an ankle or something like that. So just really, really handy to have. So after that, the types of stuff that you might want to have in an aftercare kit will be divided into a couple of different categories. The first one I'm going to talk about is food and drink. Often food and drink is something that a lot of people will want after they play. We've expended a lot of energy and now we need to replenish that. And often we've expended a lot of, we've been sweating, just working hard. So now, maybe depending on the type of play, you've had a bunch of orgasms, squirting, ejaculation, that kind of stuff. So you need to replenish your fluids. So I always like to have water. I mean, I carry water with me pretty much everywhere because I take medication on a regular basis. Even if you don't, it's just a generally good idea to have a bottle of water. And you can get those reusable bottles. They're not that expensive, and that way you're helping the environment instead of using disposable water bottles, which I am sometimes guilty of doing. Other things that you may want to have in the drink category may be some Gatorade. If you find that water just isn't enough and you need those electrolytes and those extra carbohydrates, because remember, Gatorade and other sports drinks have a ton of carbohydrates. It's like eating a meal along with your drinking your liquids. So if you need the extra carbs, then by all means use sports drinks. I think a lot of the sports drinks are doing ones with fewer carbs and just the electrolytes, so you can do that as well. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think that just plain water is good most of the time, although I usually do have some rehydration salts in my first aid kit, so your mileage may vary there. Some people will prefer a different type of cold beverage or a cold beverage in general, because usually what I'm talking about is more room temperature unless you've put it in the fridge. But some people might want a soda pop or that type of stuff. Alcoholic beverages are fairly popular after play, and I really encourage that if you do want to have an alcoholic beverage, a beer or a rum and coke or whatever it is you like, to do that after play rather than beforehand, because I am a firm believer that we should approach play sober and in our without intoxicants, basically. So save the beer for after play, and that goes the same if you are in an area where marijuana is legal, because I don't want to encourage illegal drug use and get demonetized. I'm demonetized all the time anyways, but whatever. But basically, if you are in an area that allows for marijuana use, again, we save that for after rather than before. And I don't mean to say anything about medical marijuana. You use medical stuff whenever you need it, whether that's marijuana or other medications. I'm just talking about the recreational use here. I am a big fan of, first I want a bottle of water, and then I want to sit down and have a nice hot cup of tea. That's something that I really enjoy. Other people would prefer a coffee, I'm sure, but that's something that you may want to consider. And if you're playing at home, that's easy enough to do. If you're playing at another dungeon or at a party or whatever, it may be a little harder to do. I usually have a little stash of tea bags and the sweetener that I like and whatnot in my play bag anyways. When it comes to food, again, things are going to vary. A lot of people will like some sweets or a bit of chocolate after they play. It just sort of helps to, again, just replenish the body, and it gives you that little burst of sugary energy. So for a lot of people, that is what they're looking for. It's something that helps them just sort of get back. And food can also be very grounding. So if you end up finding that you get all floaty and into subspace, eating something really can help bring you back down to earth, basically. Some people will want a whole big hearty meal. I remember when we used to go to parties on a regular basis, I always wanted to go and get a nice, like, comfort food kind of meal. So we'd go to this one place where they did 24-hour breakfast, and I could get breakfast at 2 a.m. Because that's what I wanted after a long night of hanging out at the party and playing and whatnot. So I like to have something substantial after I've used a lot of energy. Again, I need to replenish that. And if that's not an option, or you are playing at a party, or you just don't feel like cooking a big meal or something like that, granola bars and protein bars are a good alternative. I mean, obviously it's not got the same sort of comfort as a big meal, but it will provide you with some salt, some protein, and things like that your body will need to sort of get back at. everything. Our next category of things to have in your aftercare kit, or you may want to, obviously this is all optional, you pick and choose what works for you, are physical comforts. So this could be things like some cozy pajamas, a big sweatshirt, a blanket to curl up in. A lot of people find that they get quite cold after they play, especially if they have been, stripped down to their underwear or nude while they're playing. They're gonna want to, get warm again and wrap themselves up. You've also put your body through quite an ordeal, so it's normal to feel cold afterwards. Hi, Wolfie. I don't need your help, okay? Can you go downstairs, please? Go on. Good boy. Now, for some people, they'll want to have a hot shower or a nice warm bath. Bubble bath is absolutely wonderful, and you can even incorporate that into part of the scene. Of course, there's always the ever popular cuddles after a play session or sex. For a lot of people, play is simply foreplay and then it'll lead to sex afterwards. So these can be a form of aftercare as well, or you can do play, sex, or combine the two and then do aftercare after that, and often cuddling and just having that time to reconnect. Especially if you are a romantic couple or friends or something like that, just the time to reconnect. I always like to have, just sit down and talk. And talk like normal people, and to me that's my chance to reconnect with my partner, because I quite often play with people who are just platonic friends, so that gives me a chance to be like, yeah, all right, we had fun together, and now we're gonna have a normal conversation. So that sort of leads me into the final category of stuff, which is emotional comforts. So talking can certainly be a type of emotional comfort, especially if, for instance, you've had a heavy humiliation scene. Perhaps that conversation will look more like reassurance, in that, reassuring your partner that you didn't actually mean the nasty things that you said, and you're offering compliments instead of insults or whatever. That's just one example amongst many that you could do. It could be a basic debrief, talking about the scene and what happened and what was good, what wasn't, that sort of stuff. For a lot of people, they sort of prefer a little bit of solitude. They want to take a step back. They may enjoy writing in a journal or just having some quiet time all on their own. I've played with a lot of people who really preferred that style of aftercare, if you want to call it that, where they just would take 10-15 minutes to kind of chill by themselves. They didn't want anyone to bother them, and then it was my job as the top or the dominant to kind of make sure that they were allowed to have that space, especially if we were, say, at a party. I basically played interference and was like, oh, hey, no, they're just chilling out, it's okay, come talk to them in 10 minutes kind of thing. So that's something that you may need to do, or you may need to recruit somebody to do. And finally, another suggestion would be to have a stuffed toy. A lot of people, especially people who identify as littles, like to have that sort of comfort of a stuffy afterwards that they can kind of hold and cuddle, even if they can't cuddle with their partner, or even if they can cuddle with their partner. It just sort of offers, again, that comfort, that emotional connection and comfort. So those are some ideas about aftercare and what you could put in an aftercare kit. There's obviously, you could put anything that you want in your aftercare kit. So I'm curious, what do you guys have in your aftercare kits? Do you even have an aftercare kit? Is this something you've thought of before? Let me know in the comments down below. I love to hear your feedback on my videos. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for checking this out, and I'll catch you in the next video.